although he has fronted up and admitted to that. So how much stick do you want to lay at his door when he owns up to his mistakes? I think, he's got the opportunity now to try and not make that mistake twice.
Yeah, hopefully.
Mike Murphy says, all they've done by not standing by and supporting the coach is created another new transition period. John, what do you make of that?
I wouldn't say we've created another one. I'm just saying we're extending our current one.
I was going to say the same.
I've been saying we've been in transition since McDermott came in, so they don't seem to have managed to make the full change over yet.
No, you're still in transition from the treble winning side of 2015. It very much feels like, doesn't it? So it's not a new transition period. It's just another part of this same.
Just extended.
Yeah. Genghis Campbell said they have to have someone lined up to allow this to happen. So we will talk a little bit more about the potential replacements for Furner later on. Superpal at Bring Back Biffy said they couldn't risk losing to Bradford. He had to go. Good luck, Richard Agar, a top coach who deserves a real chance to implement his ideas and style of play.
Well, I think he's trying to set the mic there, I think,
I imagine it's firmly stuck inside the cheek.
Really?
What do you make of this? And it's possibly been a little bit of a trolling type trope that's been out there. But what do you make of this, Josh? They couldn't risk losing to Bradford. The fear factor of losing to Bradford. Do you think there's anything in that whatsoever, or do you think actually this might be a reasonable time when there's a spell before the next Super League game?
Do I think that they fear losing to Bradford? Yes, I do. I don't think that they sack Furner specifically over that, just the fact of losing to Bradford. I think because the only reason I think they will lose to Bradford is because of the players' attitude. I don't think it'd be anything to do with Furner's coaching ability. So I don't think it's that. But,
so the change
I think
for the fact of Bradford being on the horizon, you don't think?
No, not in the slightest. No. Although
Dr. Bob Phillips.
So I was just going to say, I'd agree with Josh there. I don't think they got rid of Furner because of the fear of losing to Bradford. But having done that, I now suffer from that fear.
yeah, I agree. I agree more so now. I agree that
basically telling us Richard Agar was the better coach than Furner.
Well, maybe for the game against Bradford, because Bradford's have been playing quite a restricted game plan in their bigger games this year so far, and doing their best to grind in games, the bigger games. So maybe Agar's style of play might be more suited for the grind. I'm not sure. Dr. Bob Phillips went on the theme of who could come in to replace Furner. Dr. Bob Phillips said, "What about the Toronto coach? He has a string of grand finals and a treble under his belt. Or maybe Powell can make the step up to a trophy winning side." I think
we were always promised Powell's return.
Yeah, well, he didn't quite leave straight away, did he? When he stopped being the head coach, he went into a backroom staff role, and then did he then slide over to the other side of the Leeds rugby business?
But when they brought Smith in, the fans were always told, yes, he's going to go off his pal, get extra experience, and come back a better coach, and then he'll take over again.
Well, I
bet you see with Powell when he went to Castleford, he was sold on the back of a lot of the ex-academy players had moved over to Castleford when Leeds, were said that they were no longer wanted, so I think he was sort of tempted. He knew a lot of the players that were over there, and I think he's been very comfortable. So I don't really see him even wanting to move on because he's still got a lot of these players that he's been able to build up to the point to where they are now.
He doesn't want to move on, does he? He's built a side there, and he wants to try and win a trophy with them.
Exactly. And I think he'd love to do it and just shove it in Leeds' faces, as most of West Yorkshire would do.
Paul Stevens said, Leeds in relegation spots 3 out of 4 years have been recruiting championship players to bulk up the squad whilst internationals left. How many of the Leeds players would walk into a top 5 team? Furner's problem was there was no improvement, especially in goal line defence. So that's hitting on a key thing that has been a recurring problem under Furner's reign there. Yes, there's been maybe the recruitment, you've lost some of your champion players, but not necessarily replaced them with champion players. I'd argue that they're not necessarily championship players that you've replaced them with in the likes of Myler and Hurrell and Merrin and...
Yeah, maybe some international, some top players in there,
but the goal line defence issue is that, John, do you think that's probably been the one thing that's hung over Furner over this time, that Leeds have been accused and Furner's accused his side of making the same mistakes over and over again, and us as fans who don't necessarily understand all of what goes on in games have also been able to spot that very easily? Leeds' goal line defence has not been fixed from game to game to game. John?
I think that is the problem. I mean, if you compare Furner with what we had before with McDermott, McDermott was fantastic. Got the team defending very well. When we lost games, we didn't lose them by many points, but we just couldn't score them. Furner's come in, we've started scoring points, but he seems to have taken his eye, or somebody's took the eye off the ball with the defence. So it is, I think, a good accusation you can level at them. It's been woeful, has been our defence.
It has, and it hasn't been fixed. And I suppose when you see people making that same mistake again, you then start to question the ability of the coach to drive a change, because it's been, by and large, the same side. A little bit of rotation in the prop forwards and swaps at fullback position, but outside of that, it's been by and large the same side for most of the season, and they haven't fixed that one fundamental problem.
Yeah, I mean, we've had injuries to various players.
No, you haven't. Castle's had injuries. Don't kid yourself. Only Castle's had injuries.
No, we've had injuries, but that shouldn't make a difference. We've had the calibre of players we've got still. We should be able to tackle a lot better and defend a lot better than we have been doing. I thought it was interesting with Callum Watkins, an interview he did this week.
Yes.
Admitting basically that it was the players which got fed at the sack. Not actively going out trying to get rid of him, but because of their attitude.
And, well, Callum Watkins should shoulder that burden more than the rest because he's the captain as well. So, and actually, Josh, that's a good one to bring you in on, because you've said after last week's game, that Callum Watkins needs to be sat down and taken out of the team. And do you think Watkins' comments that he made kind of suggest that maybe he supports that view, that he hasn't pulled his weight?
I think so, yeah. As soon as I read it, as soon as I saw that, even the beginning of the article, and I just thought to myself, it's what everyone else is saying. Everybody else is saying the same thing. The players are more to blame. That the attitude's the problem. That they're just not muscling up when they need to do it. But then Kevin Sinfield, who, let's be honest, he's played with a lot of these players. He's, let's be honest, probably friends with them, then decides to sack the one person that really, I would say, isn't at the most fault, and he is open on all his post analysis when he's having his press conferences and stuff. He's saying we're not, he's being honest, and he's telling them exactly the same things that we're saying. So he's obviously going in there and telling them, but they're just not. They're not taking on his direction.
So if Sinfield has seen that the players, and some of the players will be players that he knows well, like Jamie Jones Buchanan and people like Cuthbertson, who he'll have played with for a bit of time, people like Watkins, people like Briscoe. These are players that he'll know very well from being in a dressing room with them, as well as being now involved on the backroom staff. If Sinfield is seeing that and hearing that from his playing staff, I suppose you can say he's made the right decision, because if this coach wasn't getting a response from the players, then that change needed to be made.
Yeah.
We've turned that around then on field. Now Sinfield's back to being a good guy.
Back to being a good guy.
Right, the last fan view we had in to talk about is actually quite a well-rounded one. Dom Hodgson, our friend, has taken some time out of his holiday in Disney to send in some thoughts here, and he said, 3 times this year I've said, well, that's the worst I've seen Leeds play. After that Hull FC away game, I thought we'd hit a low, but the latest Salford performance hit rock bottom, faster than Fatboy Rob will when we beat Cass again. #1 in a row. Since 2016, we've been in a transitional phase, bringing in young players for the next golden generation. And to steal from another sport, I've tried to trust the process. But waking up to this news brought home the fact that nobody has a fucking clue what the process was. It would be easy to say the club was being managed by Mickey Mouse, but the mouse has just increased. Had one box office movie in the world, whereas we've got Gary Kev and now Richard Agar playing the role on the head coach. Nice words there, complicated to get them out. He said, it feels like the back room is still in the shambles at the moment and fitness is nowhere near where it needs to be. Josh, you touched on that. Respected players are being given an extended contract and then told to find new clubs. Nothing is coordinated. There are two things that are keeping me from panicking about this. One, I'm currently on holiday. In a few days I'll be out of contact with the world, so I won't know how badly Leeds got dicked by Bradford. Yes, he's doing a transatlantic crossing on a Disney cruise ship. And two, at least we're not Wigan. Yeah, I'd feel shit about being reigning champions as well, Dom. Okay, lots to unwrap there. I think it's kind of, in a way, a nice wrap-up of some of the things we've touched on already. Yeah. And maybe we should move on to the future. We think it's going to be Flanagan after his odds came in from an outside bet, I think 8-1 early in the reckoning, to being 2-1 by the Wednesday, the day after the sacking, and then today, as we record on Thursday, he was evens the last time I saw the odds on Betfred's website before they were pulled down just before we started recording. So Shane Flanagan, difficult sell potentially with his backstory. For those who don't know, Shane Flanagan was the coach of the Cronulla Sharks when they went through what is known as the peptide scandal, basically performance enhancing drugs scandal there with their first team players getting routinely doped, I guess. He was then banned from having contact with the club for a whole season, but in that time he contacted the club regularly every other week or so. There's evidence of email exchanges, and that's probably not the whole of what contact he was. That was probably just the bits they should evidence. So whilst he went on to win the grand final with Cronulla in 2016 and then was gazumped in the World Club Challenge by the mighty Wigan Warriors in 2017, he lost his position as head coach of Cronulla when it came out about him breaking the rules, and the NRL have since refused to sanction him to be in any role associated with the game down under. So quite a checkered past. John, I'll come to you first. If it is Shane Flanagan, how do you feel about that?
If it is Shane Flanagan, I don't mind it for two reasons. Firstly, he's done bad in the past, but everybody should be given a second chance. Secondly, one of the big concerns I have with Furner going is that this is an Australian coach which we had for 6 months and then got rid of. So in future, it will make it very unlikely we would get any Australian coaches in. And I think that sometime in the future, we will need that input from down under. So appointing Shane Flanagan now, I think would help bury that fear. Because I mean, if you're a coach down under, you're unlikely to want to come to a place where they've got a record of getting rid of people from your neck of the woods after 6 months.
Yeah. So would he have? I mean, John, would he have been your first choice, or who would your first choice be?
No. My first choice would have been one of our ex-players.
Go on, do tell.
A fantastic prop forward, I believe, who's looking for a move back to rugby league.
Well, I've heard conflicting reports that Sean Wayne isn't quite looking for a move back to rugby league right now. But he has been not quoted. I've not seen any direct quotes, but he has been paraphrased in the rugby league press as saying he would be interested in the Leeds job. But whether that would be right away, I'm not so sure. But yeah, Sean Wayne would have been your first choice.
So I think we'd do really well with somebody of his attitude in place. If Sean Wayne couldn't knock the players into shape, I'm not sure who else could.
Yeah, you'd expect him to be able to motivate them if motivation has been a problem. That's for certain.
Yeah. And with Flanagan, I don't actually know much apart from his record and what he got up to. So if I knew more about him, he might have gone further up in my list. But at the moment, I'm just willing to go off his record and give him a second chance if it is him.
Okay, Josh, who would have been your first choice from the people out there potentially to have come in?
Well, I don't know if I was being honest, who would I want? If you was to say put it across, if I looked along the list of people that were put up as the contenders, who would I want? I'll be honest, Ian Watson is who I would want. That is, I think, going similar